Hi, I'm Ollie Mitchell, and in this QLab tutorial, I'm going to be going through queue sequences and using certain types of queue to assist with this. First, we're going to look at auto follow and auto continue. Auto continue allows you to make the next queue start a specified amount of time after the previous queue, rather than having to press go again. So for this example, let's take a rain sound effect and some thunder. So in this example, I have a rain sound effect first, and then I want a lightning crash 3 seconds later. Click in the blank space in the arrow column on the first queue, and an arrow will appear. This is auto continue. Now, if I press go on the first queue, both queues execute simultaneously. But this isn't what we want. We want the lightning to happen 3 seconds after the rain starts. To do that, just double click on the post wait value for the rain sound effect, type in 3 seconds, and now if we press play, you'll see it counts down, and after 3 seconds the thunder sound effect plays. As you can see, the rain still continues throughout the thunder and beyond. So that was auto follow. It allows you to make a queue follow on automatically after a specified amount of time, be that 0 seconds so that it plays instantaneously, or any amount of time after that. The next is auto continue. Let me just drag in another couple of queues. And now to apply auto follow, again click on the arrow space, but this time click twice and you will see that we have a different type of arrow. You'll also see that the post wait time has changed to match the length of the first track. With an auto follow, this value cannot be changed. If you try to change it, it will just go back to its original value. This queue just makes the next queue execute as soon as the first one has completed. You could do the same thing with an auto continue if you typed in the correct value, but this is just a quicker way to do it. So now, if I execute this queue, you'll see that the track starts to count down, and the next one plays as soon as the first one has completed. Next, I'm going to talk about groups. The most basic function of a group is to help organise your content. So if you have a lot of sound cues, you might want to put each scene into a group like this. That way you can close them up so that they only take up one line per scene. If you click on a group and go into mode, you'll see that there are 4 different options for how the group functions. The default is to start the first child and enter into the group. When it says child, it's referring to any object inside the group. So this mode is what we've done here with the scenes. The group is merely acting as an organisational tool, but isn't adding any extra functionality. So for example, if I push go on the scene 3, it starts the first track and jumps into the folder, allowing us to continue through the queues. So all that this mode is doing is organising your content. The next mode type is start first child and go to next queue. This is useful if you have a sequence of queues that you want to execute, but then be ready for the next queue. Going back to our earlier example, maybe you have a soundscape with rain and lightning. Each queue is auto-continuing from the one before. If you put it all into a group, then when you execute the group, it will jump out to the next queue, but still run everything in the group using your auto-continues, like so. The benefit of doing it this way is that you can stop everything in the group at once, no matter how far through it you are. We'll come back to that in a moment. The next mode for a group is to start all children simultaneously. This can be a neater way of starting lots of queues together, rather than having lots of auto-continues all with a time of 0. However, there is another benefit of this mode. Going back to our example before of having a soundscape. In the previous example, each queue is set to go a certain amount of time after the queue before it. This works quite well, but what if you decided that you want this lightning clap to be 1 second earlier? if you change this value to 2 seconds instead of 3, this lightning clap will now play 2 seconds earlier. However, maybe you wanted the other ones to remain where they were. They will all now have shifted a second earlier as well. This is because they all go off each other. However, if you tell the group to start all cues simultaneously, you can then use pre-wait times for each cue instead of post-wait. So if I type in some values, we want this one to go after 2 seconds, and then this one will be 9 seconds. Again, this is from the start, so it's the original 3 plus the 6 that we had before, and this one will be 22 seconds. Now we remove the post-wait values, remove the auto continues, now we can execute this group, and you can see it behaves in exactly the same way as before. The benefit of this is you can now adjust any cue independently of the others. It's also handy as you can see exactly how long it will be until each cue executes, just by looking at the timer in the pre-wait column. Finally, the last mode is start random child and go to next cue. This does exactly what it says on the tin. This will play a random cue from your group and then go on to the next cue outside of the group. So in this example, I have a few music tracks in the group. When I execute it, it will play a random cue within that group and then go outside of the group to the next cue. So if I stop this and go back and play it again, it plays a different track. Now I'm going to talk about start, stop and pause cues. Going back to our soundscape that we had earlier, let's say you have 3 scenes in your play where you need to use it. You could copy and paste the group 3 times, but then if you need to make a change to it, you'd need to do it all 3 times. Another way to do it is with a start cue. If you put your group at the top, and then put a start cue in each place that you want it to play, you can then trigger it multiple times. So drag a start cue into your cue list. You'll notice there's a red cross at the moment saying that it's a broken cue. If we hover over it, it tells us there's no target cue. This means we haven't yet told it which cue that we want to start. So to tell it which cue, all you do is grab the group and drag it over the top of the start cue and let go. You can see that the start cue now references the group. Now if you push the start cue, it will play the group. So if you had multiple start cues throughout your show, you could reference that one group multiple times, meaning that you only have to make changes to it in one location. Stop and pause cues work in exactly the same way. Maybe in the middle of the scene, there's a moment where a character steps out of the scene to address the audience, and you want the sounds to briefly stop, but then resume from where they had got to. All you need to do is use a pause cue and then another start cue. So drag in a pause cue, tell it that it's the rain group that we want to affect, and now put another start cue in, and again tell it to address the rain group. Now if we play the first cue, which starts the group, and then we push pause, everything will stop exactly where it is. Now when we're ready to start again, just push the next start cue, and it will continue from exactly where it got to. Now if you want the rain to stop after this, use a stop cue. Drag the stop cue in, tell it that we're looking at this group, and then if we go to the top again, we can start it, pause it, start it again, and stop it. You'll see that when we press stop, all of the cues disappear from the active cue list, as we have now completely stopped them. If we were to start them again, they would start from the beginning, rather than where we left off. Now it may be that you prefer to fade it in or out, rather than just stopping and starting. That will be the topic of our next tutorial. Please also note that these cues don't have to act on groups. They can just as easily act on individual cues. So let's say we have a music track, and that goes near the beginning of the show. If you want to execute it again later, just bring in a start cue, drag that onto it, and then when you push this, it will play the cue. So that brings us to the end of this tutorial on cue sequences. Hopefully you're now beginning to see more of QLab's capabilities and why it's such a powerful program. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.